Hello, so I thought I'd do an update on my Hex tabletop, which I worked on several months ago, but haven't done any work on it for a while, and I hadn't completed it. I hadn't done the edges, so I've just spent the last 2 or 3 days spending the odd hour here and there sorting out the edges, so now it's complete. Just a quick reminder, it's Hex blocks, and it's made on a lattice work of these kind of snowflake. Now the foam I use is underfloor heating insulation, which I get up from a company on eBay. Comes in 2 metre by 1 metre sheets, or something like that, and then I cut it up with a hot wire cutter. And you use the templates to create the various shapes that are required. So this is one of the templates to make the bog standard hex, and then you use all sorts of other different ones. So on the bottom of a hex, they slot into the lattice work with a piece here, and they slot in there. So that's a template that's used to make these small pieces which fit on the middle. And then I'm using 2 layers, each is 7.5 millimeters to make up 15 millimeters thick. So all the hexes are multiples of 7.5 millimeters. And once you've made these, you add them all together to the size of the table that you want, and then you plug in various hexes. On here I've got 3 examples. So I've got a standard hex, river hex, and a track. That's a dirt track. A road in 28mm would be bigger than that, and so I'll probably just make roads and lay them across the top rather than individual hexes, but you never know. So one of the first things I discovered actually when putting them all together, so if I just show you on the bottom, that's the sort of look that they all plug into. Was these are actually quite flimsy and weak, and I found that when I was so for instance they'll plug together like so. I found that when I was unpacking them at the end, when I was packing away, that an awful lot of these just broke and snapped because they didn't have the durability. So you get pieces like that, and consequently you spend half the time making new snowflakes. So what I decided to do was to reinforce them a bit, and so all the snowflakes now have a reinforced card. I started off using some thick paper, but that wasn't strong enough, I don't think, so I went and bought some A4 sheets of card, and this particular stuff, gold card in A4 sheets, was quite cheap at the range, so I bought a few packs of that, cut these all out, and stuck them onto all the bottoms of these. Now I've got something like 360 of these, which make up a 6 foot by 4 foot terrain. So if you can imagine, this is a rectangle here, and the full size will be 6 foot by 4 feet. So I've reinforced all these, and then I had to I've done all the middle bits, done the rivers, done that, but I hadn't made the edges. So that's what I've been doing the last few days. And to make the edges, because of their hexagon shape, you have 2 sides. So one is a pointed edge there, and this one over here is a flat. So you have to make 2 sets of edges to go on each side. And so these are the edges that I made, the flat and the pointed, and again just stuck a card on them, cut them in half, and Bob's your uncle. So I've made up all the edges, and the last thing I have to do is to do the edges for the rivers. Now The rivers are fine if they're going across the board. So if I just take that out, so for instance, if it's going straight across there, then I can just use the whole river, and because of the flat edge, it'll just go straight across and come off the flat edge that side. But of course, if you want to go across the table, because of the shape of the hexagons, it's very difficult to go that way. So you can zigzag across, which means you've got to have a funny shaped piece for the edges. So what I've done is, so here's my track hex, and I'll just shave out a little groove so that you've got a tiny bit of curb, and I've just made some tracks by sticking the hot wire into the surface, and then cut that in half. So again, because you've got two sides pointed or straight, you have to cut them differently. So they're cut so that that one's got a flat edge and that one's got a sharp edge. So that will then go in there, and the flat edge will go in there, and then I've got my straight road. Similarly with the rivers, which are just drying. So this is a river hex. This is how it starts out. The flat bottom hex, and then cut the two edges of the river banks, glue those on, stick some sand, and then paint them up into the river hex as so. So that will cut in half. I'll go in there, and then I'll slice that across there. Similarly, I'll make a flat edge one for this edge of the table, and then it's fully interchangeable. So that's where I am with my hex tabletop. The one thing that I did discover or realise is probably best not to do different sections at different times. The reason being, because of the amount of flock that I've used, I keep having to top up the flock, and it's very difficult to remember. Well, it was when I started, to remember what flock I used, where I got it, and what the exact colour was. So I've got various mixtures over time, and actually I quite like the look. There's 3 or 4 different shades of flock now, and once you've mixed up all the hexes, it actually does look quite effective, rather than having them all exactly the same colour. But because I've done all the edges, left them to the end, then I've only got one colour of flock. So all my edges are this colour, which is lighter than this. But that's something to bear in mind if I make a different table. So there we are with a hex tabletop. So the next time I'll do something on it, I'll show you the full size, fully set up with all the edges. Thanks for watching.